Are y'all ready for the word? Let's go to the book of Enoch, chapters 18, 19, and 20. This morning what we're going to do is return to more of a verse-by-verse examination of the book of Enoch. And though we've already spent time in chapter 18, we're going to return there because in our last examination of chapter 18, we focused primarily on what it had to say about the earth being fixed on a foundation. It talked more about biblical cosmology, but that chapter talks about more than just that. And so we're going to read it again and see what else it says before we move into chapter 19 and 20. So chapter 18 is on page 39. We start reading in the first verse. Chapter 18, verse 1. I saw the treasuries of all the winds. I saw how he had furnished with them the whole creation and the firm foundations of the earth. And I saw the cornerstone of the earth. I saw the four winds which bear the earth and the firmament of the heaven. And I saw how the winds stretch out the vaults of heaven and have their station between heaven and earth. These are the pillars of the heaven. I saw the winds of heaven which turn and bring the circumference of the sun and all the stars to their setting. I saw the winds on the earth carrying the clouds. I saw the paths of the angels. I saw at the end of the earth the firmament of the heaven above. So that's where we primarily have focused, talking about the firm foundations of the earth and how it's set on a cornerstone and has a firmament above it. So now we go to verse 6. And I proceeded and saw a place which burns day and night, where there are 7 mountains of magnificent stones, 3 towards the east, 3 toward the south. And as for those toward the east, one was of colored stone, one of pearl, one of jacinth, and those toward the south of red stone. But the middle one reached to heaven like the throne of YAHWEH, of alabaster, and the summit of the throne was of sapphire. I would pause there just to say that the description he gives of the summit of the throne of YAHWEH is the same one, or sounds similar to the one that Ezekiel had. Let's go look at Ezekiel, and then we'll come back and finish reading here. Ezekiel 1. In Ezekiel's vision, he's describing what he saw, and here's what he said. Verse 26. And above the firmament that was over their heads was the likeness of a throne as the appearance of sapphire. And that's exactly what Enoch said there in verse 8. The summit of the throne was of sapphire. Ezekiel says above the firmament, which would be the summit that was over their heads, was the likeness of a throne and the appearance of a sapphire stone. And upon the likeness of the throne was the likeness as the appearance of a man above it. And I saw as the color of amber, and the color of amber is between a yellow and a gold, so it would be the color of fire, as the appearance of fire round about within it. So amber, the appearance of fire, the same thing. From the appearance of his loins even upward, and from the appearance of his loins even downward, I saw as it were the appearance of fire, and it had brightness round about. As the appearance of the bow that is in the cloud in the day of rain, so was the appearance of the brightness round about. This was the appearance of the likeness of the glory of YAHWEH. And when I saw it, I fell upon my face, and I heard a voice of one that spoke. So Enoch and Ezekiel appear to be describing the same thing, that they saw and encountered the same thing. Now, as to the rest of what Enoch said there in verse 6, 7, and 8, the rest of what he's describing, he gives no more information about it than what he gave. And when I go to find other correlating scriptures concerning those things he said about the mountains in the east and the west, or east and south, I can't find any correlating scripture anywhere else that I know of that would help explain exactly what he's seeing and their relevance. So I say again, I said a couple of weeks ago, I'm not going to expound upon that which he nor other scriptures give more details about. If there was more we needed to know about what he saw and what he described, then we would be told. Verse 9. In Enoch 18. Now that we've said Ezekiel, I might say that 3 or 4 more times before the morning's out. Verse 9. And I saw a flaming fire, and beyond these mountains is a region, the end of the great earth. There the heavens were completed. And I saw a deep abyss, with columns of heavenly fire among them. I saw columns of fire fall, which were beyond measure, like towards the height and towards the depth. Let that sink in. He is saying he sees columns of fire that there's no way he could measure how wide they were or how tall they were. That's huge columns of fire. And beyond that abyss, I saw a place which had no firmament of the heaven above, and no firmly founded earth beneath it. There was no water upon it, no birds, but it was a waste and a horrible place. So if it had no firmly founded earth beneath it, and it had no heaven above it, sounds to me like he is describing the bottomless pit. No heaven above, no earth beneath, no life in it, no life around it. And the bottomless pit is spoken to in Revelation 9. It's spoken to us out of Revelation 9, Revelation 11, Revelation 17, Revelation 20. In Revelation 9:11, we're told that there is a king over the bottomless pit, and his name is Abaddon in the Hebrew. In Greek, his name is Apollyon, and they both mean the same thing. It means the angel who destroys. So the bottomless pit has a king, and his name is Abaddon, the destroyer, the angel who destroys. In Revelation 20, we read that an angel with a key to the bottomless pit will bind the dragon. We're told he's called the dragon, the old serpent, the devil, the Satan, and he's going to cast him into the bottomless pit for 1,000 years. So Enoch is describing this bottomless pit, it seems to me, that Revelation 9, 11, 17, and 20 tell us about. And he's telling us it's a horrible, terrifying place. Let's read on, verse 13. And I saw there 7 stars like great burning mountains, and to me, when I inquired regarding them, they seemed like. They were not great burning mountains, but they seemed like great burning mountains. But what he actually saw were 7 stars. Look in Enoch chapter 21. I normally don't like to jump ahead, but I think it's necessary here. Enoch 21 verse 1. And I proceeded to where there was to where things were chaotic. And I saw there something horrible. I saw neither a heaven above nor a firmly founded earth, but a place chaotic and horrible. And I saw 7 stars of the heaven bound together in it like great mountains and burning with fire. Then I said, for what sin are they bound, and on what account have they been cast in here? Then Uriel, one of the holy angels who was with me and was chief over them, said, Enoch, why do you ask? And why are you eager for the truth? Isn't that a great question? May that same question be asked of us often. Why are you eager for the truth? Why are you asking that question? We ought to get in our Bibles and ask questions. I believe we'll get more answers. Ask. These are the number of the stars of heaven which have transgressed the commandment of Yahweh and are bound here till 10,000 years. The time entailed by their sins are consummated. So in chapter 18, the stars that were like great burning mountains are described the exact same way in chapter 21, verse 3. Like great mountains burning with fire. So these 7 stars must be massive in size. Right? For them to appear as great burning mountains these stars must be massive in size. And these stars, they are stars, but I think we need to never think of them as inanimate. They are living spirits. They are living creatures. Living creatures who transgress the commandment of Yahweh. And it says here they've been sent to the abyss for 10,000 years. In the rest of chapter 21, verse 10 speaks of angels, not stars, not the host of heaven, but they are designated in chapter 21, verse 10 as angels who are cast into a separate part of the abyss. More horrible than the first one, but into a separate part. And we're told that those angels are put there forever. Now, I bring that up because I had in a previous study thought the phrase 10,000 years was an idiom and it meant forever. Because I looked at chapter 18, I looked at chapter 20 verse 3, and then I looked at chapter 21 verse 3 and 21 verse 10, and 10,000, and then forever. And I said, well, the idiom, that must be an idiom for forever. But what I failed to see at the time I was saying that is that we're talking about two different kinds of entities. The stars and the host of heaven are put into the abyss where they will spend 10,000 years. But the angels who sinned, and they're a different category, have been put into the abyss forever. So after re-examining the text and the phraseology, and let the text say what it says, which I say we should do all the time, let the text say what it says, I'm now certain I was in error when I said that 10,000 meant forever. The stars and the host of heaven who transgressed the commandments of Yahweh did not come forth at their appointed time like they were told to come forth, are bound in the abyss for 10,000 years. That's Enoch 18:16 and Enoch 21:6. At the end of that time, their guilt will be consummated. So they'll be set free. The angels who sinned are bound in a different part of the abyss forever. There will never be peace for them. They'll never be set loose. Verse 14. The angel said, this place is the end of heaven and earth. This has become a prison for the stars and the host of heaven. And the stars which roll over the fire are they which have transgressed the commandment of Yahweh in the beginning of their rising, because they did not come forth at their appointed time. So this angel is telling Enoch, and if we go back to chapter 21, we'll see that that angel is Uriel, who's explaining this to Enoch. Uriel tells Enoch the bottomless pit was created to be a prison for stars and the host of heaven who transgress. Now, I think we need to make mention of the fact that these stars and the host of heaven who have transgressed and have been put into the bottomless pit are not the ones we read about in Enoch 6 or in Genesis 6. Those were watchers, designated as angels who were watchers. They are put into that place forever, into a different place forever. This is a prison for stars and host of heaven, we're told. What he means by those, I don't know. But he's making it clear that there are angels beside, or there are spiritual beings. Let me say it that way. There are spiritual beings besides the watchers. We know the watchers transgressed. And we know what they did. They took the daughters of men for wives. And they created hybrids. We know what they did. And their punishment is forever for doing what they did. But before the days of Jared, that's when the watchers came down, during the days of Jared. Before the days of Jared, evidently there were some stars and the host of heaven who did not come forth at their appointed time. And they have been bound in this bottomless pit for 10,000 years. We're not told exactly what they did, only that they transgressed against Yahweh. Now, to me, it is hard to comprehend how these heavenly beings, these spiritual beings who were in the presence of Yahweh, beholding his glory always, how they could do such a thing. How is it possible? Because even Yahweh was astonished at the watchers that they could forsake their place. So it's hard for me to comprehend how these stars and host of heaven in the presence of Yahweh could transgress against Yahweh. But when I read it, it confirms for me the glory and the majesty of Yahweh. And here's what I mean by that. He created the stars and the heavenly host with free wills. Otherwise, they couldn't transgress. They're not robotic. They were created with free wills. It's verified they had free wills because they transgressed. They disobeyed. And so, though I'm baffled at how they could have done such a thing, I'm reminded about all of the stars and the heavenly host and the angels who are keeping their appointed times, who are not transgressing. Think about all the heavenly hosts as described in Isaiah 6 who are flying around the throne of Yahweh shouting, "Holy, holy, holy," so loudly that the doorpost trembles. I think about that and realize they're not robots. They don't have to do that. They're not forced to do that. They merely see the magnificence and the glory and the otherness and the holiness of Yahweh, and they can't help but shout out His holiness. They're not doing it robotically. They're doing it because He's so awesome. They could stop any time. Yet we're told that they sleep not day or night, but shout their admiration of Him. So when I read about those who transgress, I stand in awe of Yahweh because most of the heavenly beings still shout His praises. They realize how awesome He is. Let's go to verse 16. And He was wroth with them and bound them to the time when their guilt should be consummated, even for 10,000 years. The stars, again, that are some type of living spirit, and the heavenly host are bound for 10,000 years, at which point their guilt will be consummated. It will be completed. It seems to me that they will eventually be forgiven or pardoned or at the least set free. Chapter 19. And Uriel said to me, "Here shall stand the angels who have connected themselves with women." So we're back to Genesis 6 now. "And their spirits, assuming many different forms, are defiling mankind and shall lead them astray into sacrificing to demons. As gods, here shall they stand till the day of the great judgment, in which they shall be judged till they are made an end of." They're never going to be set free. So here are the angels, the watchers who descended upon Mount Hermon. We've talked about this before. Because of Enoch, we know what evil spirits are. We know what demons are. Without that, you don't know. You're playing a guessing game what a demon is or where they come from. Actually, I was talking to Glenn before y'all got here about a video he and I both are watching. It was intriguing to listen to some of those men try to speculate as to what a demon was. There was 4 ministers, and before they entered into the discussion about their topic, off air, they agreed that they would stick with the 66 books of the Bible. They wouldn't reference Enoch, and they wouldn't reference the book of Jubilees. It was, I want to say interesting, but frustrating is more the word I'm looking for. It was frustrating to listen to them struggle with a subject and speculate when there is no need to speculate if you would just accept what Yahweh showed Enoch and told Enoch, or the book of Jubilees. All right. So because of Enoch, we know what evil spirits are. They are the disembodied spirits of the Nephilim. We also know that they assume many different forms and they defile mankind. We also know that they lead men astray, and here we're told they do what we see done from that time forth. They get men to believe that they, the evil spirits, are demons. And they get connected to idols and different rituals. The entire Greek Gentile religious system is founded upon the worship of demons that people believe to be gods, that are traced back to the Nephilim. Go to 1 Corinthians chapter 10. You're familiar with it, but let's read it again. 1 Corinthians 10, verse 18. Behold, Israel, after the flesh, are not they which eat of the sacrifices partakers of the altar? What say I then, that the idol is anything, or that which is offered in sacrifice to idols is anything? But I say that the things which the Gentiles sacrifice, they sacrifice to devils, and not to YAHWEH. And I would not that you should have fellowship with devils. I'd just rather you not fellowship with a demon. The question at hand here is the Gentiles, the Greeks, worship other gods, and they have sacrifices to them. The sacrifices aren't totally and completely burned up. The meat is then taken to the marketplace and sold. And so the question is it okay to eat that meat? And so Paul goes back and says, well, let's think about the way it is with us. We bring our sacrifices, we give them to YAHWEH, and not all of them are burned up either. Many of them are meant to be a feast afterward. And so the priests prepare the sacrifices, present them to YAHWEH, and then they're used for us to eat. And when you eat of that, which was sacrificed, Paul says, you're a partaker of the altar upon which it was sacrificed. You are a partaker of the altar upon which it was sacrificed. It was sacrificed on an altar of YAHWEH, so therefore you are a partaker of his altar, and you are showing your fellowship with him. And he says the same point is true. If it was sacrificed to a different god, it was really sacrificed to a demon. And if you eat that meat knowing that it was sacrificed to a demon, then he says you are fellowshipping with a demon, and I'd rather you not do that. You're showing yourself to be a companion of a demon. That's what fellowship means. You're a demon's companion. You're showing yourself to be that demon's associate. You are associated with him if you eat that. Well, Enoch foresaw what was happening in 1 Corinthians 10. Enoch foresaw such things happening and warned us about them. He said that the evil spirits that came forth from the unholy unions of Genesis 6 would lead men to worship them as gods. So, the point is we need to recognize that that's what demons do and make sure that we do nothing that indicates that we are a companion of demons. That's why we detest everything about Christmas. Everything. There is not one redeemable thing about the celebration of it. Not one. That's the reason we detest Easter. Those are not harmless practices. They are services being given to demons. You cannot examine those practices and justify them in any way. If eating meat from the marketplace that was sacrificed to a false god was fellowshipping with demons, then of a certainty, declaring December the 25th to be the birthday of a Messiah, of our Messiah, that's fellowshipping with a demon, because that's a lie. Of a certainty, setting up cedars and decorating them, putting up mistletoe and evergreen, talking about Santa, all of those things are associated with demons. We cannot partake of them without fellowshipping with demons. All of these are methods of becoming a companion. Of a certainty, declaring Sunday to be the day of the resurrection, having sunrise services, dyeing eggs, hiding eggs, hunting eggs, talking about Easter bunnies, talking about Easter cooking and eating Easter ham. proclaiming the symbol of Tammuz to be a sacred thing, observing of Lent, observing of Ash Wednesday. All of these are methods of becoming a companion with demon, because all of those things are associated with rituals that are connected to demons parading around as gods. Don't shout me down because I'm preaching good. Enoch warned us, Paul warned us, any preacher who tells you that such activities are harmless and that you can reassign meaning to them is lying. That's as bluntly as I can put it. So the question becomes to those who continue to participate in them, are you going to continue to believe the preacher that you're listening to, or are you going to awaken and believe what's written? And what's written is you're participating in fellowshipping with demons. Now, to verse 2. Back to Enoch 19. And the women also of the angels who went astray shall become sirens. So what do you think about that? If that doesn't cause you to tilt and scratch your head a little bit, I don't know where your threshold is. I don't really know what to do with that verse, but I will venture out and say this. At this point, I am of the opinion that R.H. Charles mistranslated that verse. It makes no sense to me that the women who are daughters of men, human, who I believe were seduced and deceived, would be made to be some hybrid creature where they're half woman and half fish. I don't see their punishment is that they're made into a hybrid. Daniel Olson has a translation of Enoch. It's called Enoch, a New Translation. I do not have a copy of that because it sells on Amazon and at other places, other websites, for around $400. That's a lot more than I paid for my first car, so I haven't ventured out to buy his translation of the book of Enoch. But I have read notes from those who have read his translation, and they state that Daniel Olson says that R.H. Charles translated from the Greek and came up with the word siren. But he said there is an Ethiopic text that should have been used, and it translates this way. And the wives of the angels who went astray shall have peace. In reality, I do not have the scholarly credentials to know who's correct, R.H. Charles or Daniel Olson. I do not have the credentials to say emphatically one way or the other. But Olson's translation makes more sense to me, is all I'm saying. It seems to me that the Ethiopic text is letting us know that the women were victims of seduction and deception and not the instigators of the rebellious act we read about in Genesis 6. Many times in the previous chapters of Enoch, we've read where Yahweh told Enoch, tell the watchers they'll have no peace. He said that more than once. Tell them they'll have no peace. So it makes sense to me that he is now telling Enoch, the women will not suffer the same punishment. They shall have peace. If you have different insight on that, I'd love to hear about it. Verse 3. And I, Enoch, alone saw the vision, the end of all things, and no man shall see as I have seen. I saw the vision, the ends, plural, of all things, and no man shall see as I have seen. Do you remember how the book of Enoch began? Why don't you flip there and let's just look at it real quick and remind ourselves. because he began the book by telling us exactly what he's saying there in verse 3. Enoch 1:1, the words of the blessings of Enoch, wherewith he blessed the elect and righteous, who will be living in the day of tribulation, when all the wicked and godless are to be removed. So see, folks, that is the end. When the wicked and the godless are removed. That's the ends of all things. All right? Now let's go to chapter 20. Verse 1. These are the names of the holy angels who watch. So, we know about the watchers on Mount Hermon in Genesis 6, but they're not the only watchers. There are many other watchers. So these are the names of the holy angels who watch. These are watchers who have not left their first estate, still doing what they're supposed to do. And we're about to be told what they watch over. So here we go, verse 2. Uriel, one of the holy angels, who is over the world and over Tartarus. Also, that would be referring to the abyss, to the holding place of the fallen ones. I'm going to go through and let you know what their names mean. Uriel, in Hebrew, I think it's more correctly pronounced Uriel. Uriel. We have some Hebrew folks on here that let me know if that's correct or not. But Uriel, his name means flame of the mighty one. The mighty one's flame or fire. He's over the world and over Tartarus. That's why when Enoch was visiting the great abyss and he had questions, it was Uriel who came to answer those questions for him and to give him the tour. Raphael, one of the holy angels, who is over the spirits of men. His name, you know what his name means? Rapha. Yahweh Rapha. Does anybody remember what Yahweh Rapha means? Yahweh who heals. Right? So Rapha means heal. So Raphael means the mighty one heals. He's over the spirits of men. Now, I take that to mean that when our bodies die, every spirit has to go somewhere, whether it's righteous or unrighteous. The spirit has to go somewhere. Well, Raphael is over those spirits that will await judgment day. He's over the spirits awaiting judgment day. Rachiel, one of the holy angels who takes vengeance on, notice that, he takes vengeance on the world of the luminaries. Rachiel, his name means the mighty one's friend. What a name. The mighty one's friend. If stars or luminaries transgress, they have to answer to him. The meaning of his name and his assignment brings to my mind James chapter 4, verse 4. His name means friend of the mighty one. The mighty one's friend. His assignment is to take vengeance on the world of the luminaries. The only reason he'd be doing that is if they transgress. James 4:4 says this, you adulterers and adulteresses, know ye not that the friendship of the world is enmity with Yahweh? Whosoever therefore will be a friend of the world is the enemy of Yahweh. If we, like Rachiel, are the friend of our mighty one, it's going to put us at enmity with the world. If we are friends of the world, we are the enemies of Yahweh. If we're Yahweh's friend, we're going to find ourselves being an enemy of the world. So we can say it this way, what we are comfortable with in the world is a clear indication of how close a friend we are to Yahweh. The closer we get to him, the less comfortable we become with certain things out there in the world. We have looked at Uriel, Raphael, and now the fourth one is Michael, or Michael, one of the holy angels, to wit, he that is set over the best part of mankind and over chaos. His name means, who is like the mighty one? Now, is that a question or is that a declaration? Who is like the mighty one? Well, either way, it's true, whether it's a question or a declaration. If it's a question, who is like the mighty one? There is none like Yahweh. He is holy. He's set apart. There's none like him. But if it's a declaration, and it's declaring Michael to be like the mighty one, that's okay too, because Michael is a warrior defending the people Yahweh loves. He's set over the best part of mankind. That makes him like Yahweh. Now, set over the best part of mankind, to me, that is a reference to Israel. When Enoch was written, there was no Israel. But I believe that's what that is a reference to, the best part of mankind. I base that on what we are told in Daniel chapter 10. You remember Daniel had fasted and prayed for 3 weeks? And I'm just going to read it to you. Daniel 10:13. But the prince of the kingdom of Persia withstood me 21 days. The angel coming to give Daniel his answer said he had been withstood by the prince of the kingdom of Persia. But lo, Michael, one of the chief princes, came to help me, and I remained there with the king of Persia. But I will show you that which is noted in the scripture of truth, and there is none that holdeth with me in these things, but Michael, your prince. When I was trying to get to you, it was Michael that came to my defense. And there is none but your prince that helps me concerning this matter. So it seems to me that Michael is set over Israel. In Daniel chapter 12, verse 1. And at that time shall Michael stand up, the great prince, which stands for the children of your people. And there shall be a time of trouble, such as never was since there was a nation, even to that same time. And at that time your people shall be delivered, every one that shall be found written in the book. So the best of mankind and the children of Israel seem to be synonymous terms to me. And it says that Michael's not only over the best of mankind, what else is he over? Chaos. Thank you, Anthony. I think that I take that to mean that it's referencing the fact that he's a mighty warrior. And he leads battles against the onslaughts of chaos. Chaos comes with its attempts to destroy the plans of Yahweh. Michael is sent forth to thwart those plans. Now, I base that off of Revelation 12. If you'd like to turn there, we'll read that and then we'll come back here. But I don't want to just read that quickly to you. Let's read that together. Revelation 12. Revelation 12, verse 7. And there was war in heaven. Michael and his angels fought against the dragon, and the dragon fought and his angels, and prevailed not. The dragon and his angels prevailed not, neither was their place found any more in heaven. And the great dragon was cast out, the old serpent called the devil and Satan, which deceives the whole world. He was cast out into the earth, and his angels were cast out with him. So that's the picture I get when I read that Michael is over chaos. He's over it. He prevails against it. It cannot prevail. It cannot overcome him. Chaos prevails not because Michael is over chaos. All right? Now let's go back to Enoch. We're in verse 6 now. Sarakiel, verse 6, one of the holy angels, who is set over the spirits who sin in the spirit. His name means the mighty one's command, or the command of the mighty one. He is set over the spirits who sin in the spirit. So Raphael takes vengeance over the world of the luminaries, which would be to me the disobedient stars, which are living creatures. So Raphael is over the spirits that sin in the spirit. This could reference or be a reference to any of the hosts of heaven, because they are all spirits, spirit beings. But they transgress, and when they do, he is over them. Verse 7, a name we're more familiar with. Gabriel, one of the holy angels, who is over paradise and the serpents and the cherubim. His name means, I like this, the mighty one is my hero. The mighty one. El Shaddai, YAHWEH, he's my hero. Well, he's over paradise and serpents and the cherubim. I take the word serpents to be a reference to the seraphim. In my opinion, reading it, that's what I see, because you're talking about the cherubim, the seraphim and the cherubim. Seraphim are serpent-looking creatures who have 6 wings, and they're mentioned in Isaiah 6. Referenced that a while ago. I'm going to read it now. If you want to read it with me, you can. I'm going to read the first 4 verses there. Isaiah chapter 6, verse 1. In the year that King Uzziah died, I saw also, and you see the word the Lord there is not in all capitals. So this is not the name, YAHWEH. He said he saw Adonai, the Supreme One. I saw him sitting upon a throne, high and lifted up, and his train filled the temple. Above it stood the seraphims. Each one had 6 wings. With 2 he covered his face, with 2 he covered his feet, and with 2 he did fly. And one cried unto the other and said, Holy, holy, holy is Yahweh of hosts, and the whole earth is full of his glory. And the post of the door moved at the voice of him that cried, and the house was filled with smoke. So, seraphim are a fiery serpent. That's what that word means. A serpent that appears to be ablaze with 6 wings. So, whatever a seraphim is, Gabriel is over them. And cherubim. The first mention of the cherubim is in Genesis chapter 3. We see this in verse 24. And he drove out the man, and he placed at the east of the Garden of Eden cherubims, and a flaming sword which turned every way to keep the way of the tree of life. So, the cherubim were sent to guard the Garden of Eden and the tree of life. No other being, spiritual being, is mentioned more in the scriptures than cherubim. And a lot of that's got to do with the fact, you remember when the Ark of the Covenant had the mercy seat on it. What's on top of the mercy seat? Cherubim. One on each end. And their wings stretched out and touched. It was cherubim that were crafted. When Solomon built the temple, there were many cherubim that he had engraved and made as part of that temple. So, cherubim, crafted to stand over the mercy seat of the Ark of the Covenant, which I think indicates to us that they surround the throne of Yahweh, attending to him always. When you come into the presence of the cherubim, you're coming into the presence of Yahweh. Anyway, Gabriel is over the cherubim, so it's no wonder that in Genesis 3, he sends cherubim to guard the entrance to the Garden of Eden. What else do we know about cherubim? Not only are they displayed on the Ark of the Covenant, what else do we know about them? If you go into the New Testament, or not cherubim, I'm talking about Gabriel. Got sidetracked in my thinking there for a minute. We know that Gabriel is over the seraphim and over the cherubim. But what else do we know about him from the New Testament? What else did he do?
He talked to Mary.
There you go. He went to Nazareth and told Mary that you have found favor with Yahweh, and you're going to give birth to a child. You're going to name him Yeshua, That which is born of you is of the Ruach HaKodesh. But before he went to see Mary, what else did Gabriel do? Zechariah, thank you, Anthony. Zechariah, a priest performing priestly duties, has a vision, and Gabriel stands in front of him and terrifies him. And Gabriel says, "Fear not," and tells him, your wife's going to have a son. You're going to name him John. He's going to be like the prophet Elijah. He's going to turn many hearts of the people of Israel to YAHWEH. And Zacharias, hearing all this, said, I'm old and well stricken in years, and so is she. So how am I supposed to know that what you're telling me is true? That didn't go over well. And in other words, I need a sign that what you're telling me is true. And Gabriel said, paraphrasing, but Gabriel said, I stand in the face of YAHWEH, in the presence of YAHWEH, and I've come to deliver a message to you, and you don't believe what I'm telling you? You want a sign? Here's a sign. You're not going to be able to talk anymore. And left. And he couldn't talk until the day that he signed a piece of paper saying, name that boy John. I'm glad he was smart enough to do that. Anyway, that's Gabriel. Remyel, verse 8 says, one of the holy angels whom Yahweh set over those who rise. His name means the mighty one's thunder, or the thunder of the mighty one. Set over those who rise. What does that mean? No, really, that's a question. What does that mean? Is that speaking of those who shall be resurrected? Or is it speaking of the sun, the moon, and other constellations? I don't know. But whichever it is, this I know for a fact, Remyel is over it. That's all we're told. I know that Yahweh's thunder is watching over those that rise. That's good to know. Now, here's an interesting thing to note. How many holy ones, set apart ones, are listed in Enoch chapter 20? Uriel, Raphael, Rachiel, Michael, Sarachiel, Gabriel, Remyel. How many is that? 7. In Revelation chapter 8, verse 6, we're told that 7 angels have 7 trumpets they're prepared to sound. In Revelation chapter 15, verse 1, we're told that 7 angels have 7 plagues filled with the wrath of Yahweh. In Revelation chapter 21, verse 9, one of the 7 angels which had the 7 plagues came and talked to John to show him the bride, or the Lamb's wife. So, is it possible that the 7 are the same? I don't know. It's intriguing to me because in Revelation 8, particularly, it starts this way, the 7 angels, as if they are designated specific. But, again, we can't be emphatic about that one way or the other, but it's interesting that 7 are listed in Enoch 20, and Revelation mentions many times 7 primary archangels bringing the age to an end. Well, what are we to take away from this study of Enoch? I got a few things I would say here. Number one, I think we should take away particularly from Enoch chapter 18 that Yahweh has a throne and it's above the firmament, which is a dome over a fixed, founded earth. Number two, I think we should take away from this that the spirit realm is real and it's tangible. We oftentimes think of that which is of the spirit as being intangible, but it's not. Enoch saw places, saw things, felt things, encountered beings that he had a hard time describing, saw things that he had a hard time describing. The spirit realm is tangible. 2 Corinthians chapter 4, verse 16 says this, "For which cause we faint not, but though our outward man perish, yet the inward man is renewed day by day. For our light affliction, which is but for a moment, worketh for us a far more exceeding and eternal weight of glory. While we look not at the things which are seen, but at the things which are not seen. For the things which are seen are temporary, but the things which are not seen are eternal." So that's the mindset that we want to get. The mindset that Paul had here. I'm not going to focus so much on what I can see. I'm going to focus more on what I can't see, because those things are eternal. They're real. They're tangible. This all is going to change, and that is going to overtake it. Just because we cannot see that spirit realm doesn't mean it's not tangible. In every battle we face and in every situation we find ourselves, we need to be consciously aware that angels are everywhere. That they that be with us are more than they that be with them. How about that? We need to be consciously aware that they that be with us are more than they that be with them. We need to be consciously aware that Yahweh's angels are all ministering spirits sent forth to minister for them who are the heirs of salvation. They are real. They have real duties. They are watchers. They are working on our behalf. You may or may not be moved by this particular story, but when I think of it, it moves me, because my dad had a brother, Uncle Charles, was a great man. I admired him. I thought a lot of him. I was extremely close to Uncle Charles. But my dad bought a track loader many years ago, and Uncle Charles bought a bulldozer, and which was great for using around their place. But they decided they wanted to be able to transport them to maybe do work for other things, other people, particularly their brothers and sisters and nephews and everything else. To do that, they needed a trailer. Trailers to haul heavy equipment are expensive. So they went to buy one. But Uncle Charles told me, he said, "I never go to do such a thing that I don't ask that angels might be sent forth in front of me to help me and to aid me in what I'm about to do." He said, "I never do that." So he says that, and my dad confirms the story. They went to the first place. They looked at a trailer. It would work. Very, very expensive. And my dad said, no matter where we go, we could waste our whole day. No matter where we go, all of them are going to be about the same price. Let's just buy this one and get back home. And Uncle Charles said, "Well, I'd like to get another price." "Well, that's an hour away." "Well, I understand that, but I'd like to go price another one." "Got nothing else to do. Let's go do that." So they drove 45 minutes to an hour to another place. They look at a trailer. The salesman comes out, showing it to them, ask about the price, and right, it's the same price as the one they had looked at an hour earlier. They turned to walk away to go into the office, and Charles said across a field and up on a hill, quite a distance away, there was a shop up there, and there was a man outside that shop sitting on a bucket. And he said, as they turned to walk away, that man yelled, "Hey, ask him about that trailer sitting down there under the tree." Charles said, I turned to the salesman and said, "What about that trailer sitting down there under the tree?" The guy said, "Well, that one's not for sale. It was sold already. It was being delivered. It fell off the trailer it was being hauled on. Skinned it up, scratched it up. It's got to be repaired. It's not for sale." He said, so we turned to go toward the office again, and that man said, "Hey, you really ought to call the owner. I bet he'll sell you that one cheap." Charles said, he turned to the salesman and said, I'd like to call the owner and see if he wants to sell that one. A little scratch paint on it ain't going to bother me. He said the salesman reluctantly agreed. They went in, they called the owner, and they bought that trailer for less than half price of what it would have cost new. Did an angel do that? I don't know. It's kind of odd that a man sitting on a hill on a bucket at that exact time of day felt prompted to say, hey, stuck his nose where it really didn't belong. And I'm sure the salesman is saying, I wish he'd shut up, right? All I'm saying is we need to be consciously aware that the spirit realm is real. The invisible is not intangible. The third takeaway for this morning. Enoch spent a lot of time describing for us the prisons of stars, heavenly hosts, and angels who transgressed the commandments of Yahweh. I don't know what you think of that when you hear all of it, but I know what Peter thought. Peter said this in 2 Peter 2:4, for if Yahweh spare not the angels that sin, but cast them down to hell and delivered them into the chains of darkness to be reserved unto judgment. So he says, think about this, he didn't spare the angels. And he draws this conclusion in 2 Peter 2:9. Yahweh knows how to deliver the godly out of temptation and how to reserve the unjust unto the day of judgment and to be punished. So Peter says, is making 2 points. And the 2 points he's making is that when we look at the angels who sinned and were punished, we should realize that if they didn't get away with it, we certainly aren't going to get away with it. But he also is making the point, because he brings up Sodom and Gomorrah, he's making the point that we need to have confidence and understand that Yahweh is not going to let anybody get away with anything. It says here, Yahweh knows how to reserve the unjust until the day of judgment. That word reserve means to guard, to keep an eye on, and to prevent somebody from escaping. To guard, keep an eye on, and prevent somebody from escaping. It may look like the unrighteous are getting away with everything they do. And sometimes you can become envious of them because of all the devious ways they live and how they get away with it and how they prosper from it. But Peter is saying to us, they're not getting away with it. Yahweh has a reservation for them that they will not be able to escape. He's got a reservation for the unjust. I think that's a takeaway from our study this morning. It's appointed unto man once to die, and then judgment. Fourth takeaway. Evil spirits are real and are always at work to lead men astray. If they can't get you to worship them as gods, then they want to get you to doubt the existence of Yahweh. They would love for people to participate in rituals that are connected to them, but if they cannot get you to do that, then perhaps they can get you to doubt things that are written. That's why Paul warns Timothy and says that the Spirit said expressly in the last days that men shall be seduced or give heed to doctrines of devils, demons. Evil spirits have doctrines. They have instructions. And Paul said, in the latter times, there will be people who depart from the faith and give heed to these. The Sabbath is no longer valid. It's a doctrine of a devil. You're in bondage if you keep the feast. That's a doctrine of a devil. The law passed away. That's a doctrine of the devil. The earth is spinning on an axis and revolving around the sun. Is that the doctrine of Scripture? Or is that the doctrine of a devil? If it contradicts what's written, it's a doctrine of a devil. Think about it this way. What does Yahweh say? If you love me, do what? come on, y'all can't be that silent this morning. If you love me, what?
Follow commandments.
Keep my commandments. So do you know what the evil spirits say? The evil spirits say, see, they keep our commandments, they love us. They believe what we told them. Do what we say. Their love is toward us. Fifth takeaway. Perhaps, and I say that carefully, but perhaps those women in Genesis 6 who were seduced and were deceived by the watchers will find mercy and have peace. And last, those 7 archangels mentioned in Enoch 20 are powerful beyond our imagination. And that if they are that powerful and they have authority over that much and they're able to oversee it so successfully, how much more is the one who created them? How much more is their commander more powerful and more authoritative? Our Messiah, Yeshua, because we're told to him has been given all power and all authority in heaven and in earth. So I look at Enoch 20 and see these 7 archangels and stand in awe of their power and their majesty and the authority they have over so many things, and yet Yeshua is over all of them. So knowing that, let us serve him in sincerity and truth. Let us serve him without fainting or despair, because the sufferings of this world are not worthy to be compared with the glory that is one day going to be revealed in us. Yahweh bless you and keep you. Yahweh make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. Yahweh lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace. His name is put upon you, so shall he himself bless you.